Welcome back to Lynxx 24. I'm Whitney Sanjari, and this is Whitney's Health Check. For many, one of the greatest joys of the holiday season is spending time with friends and family. But what if the most wonderful time of the year isn't so wonderful for you in this department? For those who have lost a loved one, the holidays can instead be one of the most difficult times of the year. I'm joined by Tomah Memorial Hospital Chaplain Bob Streeter and the hospital's Spiritual Care and Bereavement Coordinator Deb Warthan, who are here with me to discuss the topic of grief and the holidays. Thank you so much, Bob and Deb, for joining me today. Now, you guys deal every single day with families and individuals that are struggling with grief, especially during this holiday season. But Deb, can you talk to me, what exactly does grief look like?
Whitney, grief is different for everybody, but normally grief is related to and thought of to be connected with the death of a loved one. And in hospice, that's what we see mostly. But it can also be loss of a job, or a loss of a family pet, or something like that. But mostly when we think of grief, it is about the loss of a loved one.
And when we're looking at grief, how can you identify grief in somebody else, or even yourself? I mean, does it always show?
No, sometimes it's hard to see because a lot of people will isolate themselves or try to not think about the person, and the inner gets very confusing then, their inner feelings.
Sure. So when we look at grief overall, when you talk to people every single day, I mean, what are some tools that you give them how do you handle this grief?
We encourage them to talk about the loved one and to allow them to feel what they feel. We are generally people who like to fix things, and we can't fix this. And so just allowing someone to cry or to, I usually try to get them to talk about, well, when, if it was a husband-wife situation, when did you meet your husband? Where did you meet him? Things like that. Doing some life review can kind of get you started with the conversation.
Okay, so encouraging people to talk about it. And you kind of mentioned briefly, don't try to fix it.
Yes.
I know that, when someone is crying and really struggling with grief, or anything really, I mean, it's like an instinct that I want to come in and okay, how can I make you feel better? How can I take this away? How can I? And so you're saying that that's not great for grief.
That's right.
When you're dealing with grief.
It isn't.
Don't try to say something funny, or you can just let them cry and let them be sad.
And get the Kleenex with extra lotion.
That's right. That's right.
At least you can do. Yep. Okay, so once we've kind of identified some things that grief, what does grief look like? I mean, it looks different in every person, but what are some things that if I'm looking for someone, I'm like, okay, are you grieving? Are you struggling? I mean, sometimes I know, sometimes I don't, but when there are signs, what are some of those signs that I can look for?
Well, Bob mentioned isolation earlier, and that's a classic, being totally depressed, things you would normally expect, but it can be someone too who is I don't know. It looks so different on everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just so hard to.
Anger at times.
Anger, yes.
Okay. So the best way, what would you say is one of the best ways to help somebody who's grieving?
Again, just letting them talk. Being their friend.
Listen.
Yeah.
Is it normal for them to share the same stories over and over again?
Absolutely.
Is that pretty? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I actually have a little story today. So Bob, if you want to grab the thing, in just kind of a way, because we kind of had met before and talked about a way to manage grief is to talk about it. Yeah. And these are some delightful old slippers, and they are from my best friend's mom, who was like my second mother. And every year she would send me a slipper, right? Because I would in college, I'd have these ridiculous slippers that I wore inside and outside. And every year she sent me slippers. And she passed away about 5 years ago now. And this is the last pair of slippers that I got from her. And every time I wear them, it reminds me of her. So I think it's great that the encouragement to let people share their stories, let them talk about the people they love, let them cry, let them grieve however they want. And grief looks different in every person.
It does.
So thank you so much for joining me today and for talking about this really difficult subject during a happy time of the year.
It was our honor.
As always, you'll be able to find this edition of Whitney's Health Check next week on Lynxx 24 Facebook page. When we return, Nick will be joined by everyone's favorite science teacher, Larry Shekel, to explore the science of Christmas. Don't go anywhere.